You know, it's an interesting prospect to discuss ethics in a vacuum, as it were. Ethics are applied to cases, they're applied to the daily lives that we lead as prosecutors, and how do we steward families through the court process that is so difficult at times. We meet families at a point in their life that is really as bad as any other point that they've come across, and our ability to try to help them get through the system in a fair and ethical manner, not a win-at-all-costs manner, just a fair and ethical manner, is paramount to what we do. It is the fact that I'm the only one sitting here who has never had those issues with respect to judges in our courtrooms, and I'm very proud of that fact. That is how one leads by example.
Well, I don't think Uncle Sam could hear that, could you, Uncle Sam?
No, I couldn't.
Couldn't. That was a debate about ethics between the two, there's only two, Cassandra, candidates running for district attorney. One is a gal, she's been in there a long time. Her name is Joyce Dudley. She's been in a lot of county jobs. I don't know how she got into the DA's race or why, but she's there. And the only opposition is a young guy named Josh LYNN. Now, some of you will remember my show last week. We showed a man who didn't want to be found, but we found him. And he declared on his Form 700, one page on his, that's all. He didn't have a house. He didn't have stocks and bonds. He didn't have any holdings to declare on his Form 700, yet we found him living in $1 million plus home. And it appears he's got several properties. And he's the guy that gave Josh LYNN $80,000 loan. Is something wrong with that? How many people of you out there watching would give $80,000, yet you supposedly have no home in your name, you have no stocks and bonds, you just retired from the DA's office this month, April 1st. So I got to ask him some questions, but he doesn't appear to want to come on television and answer any questions. So just today, just hours ago, down at the Santa Maria Airport in California, a certain person came and gave us a file. How thick is that, Cassandra? Half inch? Inch?
I'd say about half an inch.
Half-inch file on court documents of what Miss Dudley did wrong. I'm receiving this file. It's the same file. We've added nothing. We've taken nothing out of it. And these are public documents, but most people will never go research it. This gentleman was good enough to bring me these documents. And I'm going to read just one of them. It's the case of the people of State of California versus Rodolfo Carlos. And it's in Superior Court, County of Santa Barbara, the appellate level. Okay, this is the appellate level. And if you want to look it up, this was filed in 1993. It's case number 1946-11. And it's the decision on appeal. And this is what the court said. Defendant appealed from judgment entered upon a jury verdict in Santa Barbara Municipal Court, convicting him of misdemeanor violation of Penal Code Section 273.5, subsection A, battery with infliction of corporal injury upon a cohabitant. Appellate makes three claims of error. That when the prosecutor asked an expert witness a hypothetical question, closely tracking the facts of the case, it called upon an opinion on the ultimate issue in violation of the restrictions imposed by the Evidence Code, Section 1107, subsection A. 2, that the calling of the expert witness in the case in chief, rather than the rebuttal, was prejudicial error. 3, that the prosecutor committed prejudicial misconduct in final argument by a statement before the jury to the effect that the defendant had failed to meet the burden of raising a reasonable doubt about his guilt. We reverse the conviction and remand for a new trial or other appropriate proceedings based on the violation of the Evidence Code, Section 1107, through the testimony, the expert witness. For the guidance of the court and the parties in further proceedings, we also briefly discussed the appellant's remaining contentions. The victim, Heather Berry, a young woman, age 19, pregnant by defendant, etc., 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 But guess who, people? Who was the prosecutor on this case? And they bring up the battered women's syndrome and all this kind of stuff. The prosecutor stated to the jury that the defendant's testimony denying the charges was enough to raise a reasonable doubt. The prosecutor argued the expert's opinion showed that the victim had been telling the truth in her initial statements. Now, the question is not whether the defendant was really guilty, even though it's overturned. The real issue that comes up here, and he says the victim's nor defendant's testimony in the court was worthy of belief. After brief deliberations, the jury returned a jury verdict. Hypothetical question to people's expert on battered women's syndrome. Now, who do you think was the prosecutor on this? Could it have been Josh LYNN? Was he even in the DA's office in 1993? Or was it Miss Dudley? I'm waiting to hear you guys. I can't hear you on the other side of the television set. You got to yell a little louder. It's an interesting case because in the end, concurring opinion by Judge Dodd, I agree with the majority opinion concerning the prejudicial effects of the improper expert testimony and consequently the necessity to reverse the judgment. I write separately only to note that I am not convinced that the order of proof employed here was within the discretion of the court. I am of the opinion that it may have been error to permit the people to introduce evidence in support of the credibility of the victim's pretrial statements at a time when the defense had not yet put on evidence. And therefore, when the evidence relating to her credibility was technically irrelevant, irrelevant evidence does not become proper because it anticipates a defense which likely will be, but has not yet been put forth. However, the resolution of this issue can wait for a day when it's essential for the judgment. I reserve decision as to whether this error would require reversal here in the absence of points discussed by the majority. I concur in the judgment and in the other portions of the majority opinion. That was Bruce William Dodd's judge. Now, what the other opinions had to be is pretty long, and I know this would bore you, most of you. But we're going to come back to this because this isn't the only case. And I have a couple more cases there. Maybe I'll let Cassandra read it. It might be more interesting if she reads it. But these candidates for DA are both right. Ethics are important. And it's amazing to me how little ethics I've seen in many district attorneys prosecuting in this county, as well as other counties. What really bothers me is the Richard Fine case, and I'd love to have asked Dudley and LYNN about Richard I. Fine. One time, Beverly Hills office for, I think, the Consul of Norway, now sitting 14 months in jail. But I want to let you hear the end of this debate that took place more than a week ago, because most of you in Santa Maria probably will never see it if you don't see it on this show. I think there are things said here it's worthy of your attention, because these are going to be the prosecutors. One of these people is going to win. I'm not taking bets, and I'm not endorsing either one of them. I just have questions to ask that have not been asked in these very controlled debates run by the Bar Association members and the League of Women Voters. Let's go there because I think you need to hear it from the candidates. Then we'll come back to just who's breaking the ethics here. Watch this.
We need to avoid them at all costs. When we have more money, we put most of that money, in my view, into our youth programs, the way that we can be proactive in the schools. When we cut, which we have been doing lately, we have to go back to the core services, which is about community safety. We have to deal with gangs and drugs and domestic violence and weapons possession and career criminals. Those are the things that we emphasized every step of the way. I think the news is good, not bad in the coming year. That's the one piece of good news I can give you now.
Josh said that he was acting district attorney for 119 days, and that's accurate, and that is a very, very short time, especially when you compare it to the 10 years. And that's absolutely nothing against him, but you don't glean much when you've only been in that position for 4 months, especially because during that time, Josh was also campaigning for district attorney. in order to understand budgets, you have to understand people, you have to understand programs, and you have to understand this county. That can only happen by being involved with this county for the amount of time that I've been involved and getting to know people and their needs for the amount of time that I've been doing that. Public safety is critically important, and the only way you can keep all of Santa Barbara County safe is to understand it.
The final question will go to Mr. Lynn first. Some in the district attorney's office have endorsed one candidate and some have endorsed the other. If you are elected district attorney, how will you heal the divide in the office?
The morale in the district attorney's office has suffered over the last couple of years, and it suffered because we had a leader who was a 3-decade career prosecutor who spent her entire career keeping your family and mine safe, Christy Stanley, and she got lung cancer and became very, very ill.